All right, everyone. So I made a mistake and I tried to record this for you and it didn't work. So I've already written all of our notes today. All you're going to have to do is follow along, and I would really like for you to get a piece of paper out and write this down. The other classes are behind on quadrilaterals. I know that we already started ours before we were in quarantine, so this will kind of be a review for us, but I want to make sure that you guys remember the different shapes before we start taking tests or quizzes. So quadrilaterals is where we're starting. A quadrilateral is a four-sided shape. So all you have to know is quad means four, lateral means line. Four lines. Quadrilateral, four sides. So we are going to be thinking about quadrilaterals in the next few days, and I wanted to break it down to make it a little easier to remember. So quadrilaterals are broken down into two different categories. Today we're going to be talking about parallelograms. So parallelograms are quadrilaterals because they have to have four sides. A parallelogram has two sets of parallel lines. Notice the word parallel is in parallelogram. So it's really easy to remember that a parallelogram has two sets of parallel lines. So I drew a parallelogram over here because both of these lines never touch and both of these lines never touch. They're two sets of parallel lines. So we are going to be focusing on three different types of shapes today, and all three of these shapes are parallelograms. The first one is a rectangle. A rectangle is a parallelogram because it has two sets of parallel lines. The opposite sides never touch, and these opposite sides never touch. So in order for it to be a rectangle, it has to have specific characteristics or attributes. So a rectangle has to have two sets of parallel lines, and it has to have four right angles. Remember, you should be writing this down. If you need to pause the video or go back or go get a piece of paper, any of those things, just pause the video. It's very easy. Make sure that you don't get behind. This is going to help you when you do your gym kit in a few minutes to practice. So a rectangle is four-sided parallelogram, and it has four right angles. So another shape that has to have four right angles is a square. A square is a parallelogram because it has to have two sets of equal sides. It has to have four right angles, and all of the sides have to be equal. So that's the difference between a square and a rectangle. A square is a rectangle because a square has four right angles and it's a parallelogram. But a rectangle isn't necessarily a square because all the sides aren't equal in a rectangle. So a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not always a square. So I showed some markings here. We know that the right angle mark is a little box in each corner. I also put lines on the sides that are the same length. So if they have lines on them, it means that they're the same length. They're equal length. They're congruent. That means the same. Okay, and our last shape for today is a rhombus. We've heard these words before because this is just a review, but I still want you to write them down so you're ready for your gym kit. A rhombus has to have equal sides, and it has to have two sets of parallel lines. It does not have to have right angles. So a rhombus is a parallelogram, and a rhombus is a quadrilateral. A rhombus could also be a square. It doesn't have to have right angles, but it could. So a square could be a rhombus. A rhombus is a square. A rhombus is not a rectangle because it doesn't have to have right angles, and the sides aren't equal. So these can get really confusing because some of them have really similar attributes. But what you need to know is all three of these are parallelograms, and all three of these are quadrilaterals. So I'm going to add another shape tomorrow. I want you to focus on these three today. We are going to be doing, I hope that my internet didn't just go out. We are going to be doing all of these shapes for the next couple days. So you'll be doing a gym kit, and just like always, we're going to add a few shapes as we go. So don't be worried or panicked because you don't know all the shapes. We're going to get to all of the shapes in the next couple days. Right now, I want you to focus on the ones we're doing and try your best on the gym kit. All right, I will see you tomorrow for our next math lesson and science.